In chapter 498, we are introduced to 11 pirates who are considered the worst generation. Before we are introduced to each of the supernova, it comes as a surprise that Luffy wasn't the most wanted man of his generation of heinous pirates. The title of the most wanted man of the worst generation had instead gone to the captain of the Kid Pirates, Eustass Captain Kidd. Most of the information we are aware of when it comes to Kidd comes later on within the Wano arc. However, one important thing that we are made aware of is the fact that Kidd's bounty is high because of his civilian casualties. This already sets a clear divide between how we are to perceive the two, as Luffy, who is only 15 million berries behind Kidd, was not one for killing. Fast forward through his New World escapades, we learn that Kidd hasn't had the best of luck. He loses an arm to a defeat to the red-haired pirates, gets his alliance turned on him, and loses to Kaido, culminating to the point right now with his second defeat against the red-haired pirates. Within this video, I want to create an open discussion about Kidd, plot possibilities, potential, etc. This will be my goal for most of my videos talking about characters, and I'd love to begin this format with my favorite character in One Piece. A lot of people don't really see any kind of nuance to Kidd's story. Hopefully in this video, I could try to expand your perspective on it. For context, let me explain something that you probably already knew. Every big hitter groups in the One Piece universe are just that. They are groups. Luffy has the Straw Hats and his Grand Fleet. Kaido has the Beast Pirates, the Marines have the Admirals and the ranks below it, as well as CP9 and whatever other groups that are attached to the Marines. The world simply doesn't allow many people to get far in the world by themselves. The only exception so far that at least comes to my mind is Mihawk. Though even Mihawk is weird because we don't really know his upbringing and he ends up joining the warlords and cross guilds anyways. The point that I'm trying to bring up is who you ally yourself with matters. Even Yonkos of the Seas have different relationships with people and groups outside of themselves. Which brings me to the current point that I want to discuss. The failed alliance of Kidd, Apu, and Hawkins. Within the New World, the four emperors dominate each bit of the seas, running more rampant and freely than in Paradise. Because of the connection and power of the four Yonkos, many pirates can't voyage through the New World without having to do one of these two things: battle against the Yonkos or submit. As such, it would be no surprise that Kidd, just as Luffy and Law, formed an alliance between himself, Scratchman Apu, and Basil Hawkins. And unfortunately, that alliance would not last. One thing to be brought up is that Kidd has a wild record, a losing record unfortunately, with running into Yonkos. By this point, he has already encountered the red-haired pirates and lost his arm in their battle. It would thus be another emperor to break apart his alliance. It is soon revealed that Apu was a spy from working with one of the four emperors. This emperor that Apu answers to, none other than the king of the fucking beast, Kaido. From Kaido's introduction, there is one clear detail that is pushed. Kaido is the wall that many people stop at. To call him the world's strongest man was not only taken, but not enough to describe him. Instead, he holds the title of the world's strongest creature. Captured 18 times, but only suffered 7 defeats. Sentenced to death 47 times, failing to be killed from hanging and cracking guillotines. Even the method of falling from a sky island as a means of suicide wasn't enough to defeat this person. And by sheer luck, it would be this kind of insurmountable force that would drop down specifically in front of Eustass Kidd. With Apu being a spy, it should be no surprise that he would stand with Kaido. Basil Hawkins would end up folding in fear of the beast and joining Kaido, something he would soon show regret for later on. Skipping all the way to Wano, we now see that Eustass Kidd is working alongside of Luffy and Law to defeat the two emperors. Now, with this alliance, Kidd isn't too happy to work with them, constantly trying his hand to single-handedly deal with the war. And many people cite this as a reason for why Eustass Kidd is an annoying character, but I think people see this more so as an act of pride and less as a sign of trauma. I'm sure Eustass's pride resonates deep in his words towards the two, but also see where he's coming from. From the path Kidd took to get his way to the top of the supernovas, we could assume that Kidd's journey as a pirate wasn't as pleasant and adventureful as Luffy. He, as well as many people on the seas at this point, understand how serious it gets, especially in the New World. To find trustful individuals to voyage alongside is difficult. Recruiting or allying yourself with the wrong people could spell the end of your crew. Whether they are too weak or turn out to be a spy could call your journey to a halting end. And Kid has already gone through such losses in losing his arm and being captured by Kaido. I'm sure in a world like One Piece, or even in real life, one huge betrayal could change you as a person and make it very hard to openly trust people. Also, under the pretext that Eustass Kid was some prideful, arrogant douchebag, no one really judges Luffy or Law for these same traits. The only difference is that Kid wanting to do things on his own is actually rooted in events that cost him his crew and his life. Or at least it supports it. Now, if it seems like I'm defending Kid through some kind of favoritism, yes. But truthfully, I just want to begin opening some branches of discussion for characters. So what I'm doing for Kid in this video is what I want to do for many other characters. So while I'm sure it feels like I'm pushing the Kid agenda, I am, by the way, I do have an open mind. So if you do think I'm reaching or missed something or misinterpreting anything, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm willing to listen and willing to be wrong as well. One quick note before moving on is Kid's bounty. I always found it weird that his bounty was higher than Luffy's because of civilian casualties, especially when the world government's agendas and ideology being fleshed out. It's kind of weird to compare their bounties up against one another. Like, let's think about it. At this point, Luffy defeated the strongest in the East Blue, gaining his 30 million bounty. And then after this, he would thus then go on to clap a warlord of the sea being Crocodile. And then he would declare war on the government and defeat the miracle child Rob Lucci. And then he would go on to clap another warlord of the sea, being Gecko Moria. On top of this, he also recruits Nico Robin, someone from Ohara who the government wants to wipe out of history. Now, I don't want to discredit what Kid was doing. I'm sure killing a lot of civilians would lead you to a high bounty, as it should. However, knowing the world government, I feel like there's something within his journey that hasn't been discussed yet, and hopefully we'll get to see what exactly that was. For now, let's move on to the potential of Eustass Kid. So, if Eustass Kid was to return and suddenly unleash his full potential, what would it look like? What would Pirate King Eustass Captain Kid look like? Now, for the future of these kinds of videos, I want to lay out a couple ground rules. I don't know how strict on the rules I'm going to be, but I want to at least have a framework for discussing the potential of these characters, in this case Kid. For one, I will not be adding something that is out of character for Kid. That means I am not going to give him any kind of new weapon or fighting style that he hasn't shown any proficiency with, nor have a reason to know. Most of this part of the upgrades will be stronger levels of his already present abilities. 2. Unless backed by reasonable claims, I will not just place any of Kid's upgrades definitively over another character's more potent ability. For example, if Kid had like a means of buffing his speed, I'm not going to say that he's just automatically above Kizaru just for the sake of making his potential higher than what it is. 3. I will not be giving Kid something that relies on another person as a prerequisite for said ability. Let's imagine the Kaido and Big Mom laser cannon that they fused together to make. Nothing like that. I want to leave the Devil Fruit section for last since I want to go more in depth with those abilities. So to start off, I want to begin with Eustass Kid's natural ability. So we could tell at base, Eustass Kid is somewhat relative to Luffy. I'm speaking in a matter of no haki, no gears, no extra shit. I have to clarify this so you guys don't think I'm saying that Eustass Kid is overall stronger or relative to Luffy with everything included. Now, picking something more impressive is Eustass Kid's endurance. I don't think I need to explain much to those who have watched or read the series, but during his fight with Big Mom, we see that Eustass Kid could put up with a lot more damage, taking multiple direct blows from Big Mom. Many of them were while he was under the effect of Hawking's straw doll effect. Now to add an extra layer to his impressive physicality, we could do one of two things. The first is to expand on his haki, which I will explain for the next section when we actually talk about his haki. The second is to expand on his lineage. Now, One Piece has been delving into lineage a lot more as of late, as well as throughout the course of the series. There are quite a few characters whose strength and power could be seen in who their parents were. Luffy's lineage with Dragon and Garp, Momonosuke's lineage with Oden, Bonnie's lineage with Celestial Dragons, etc, etc. Even Blackbeard's lineage is now being brought into discussion when discussing how special he was. Now, I want to bring the Shanks and Kid relations to light. I don't want to go too in depth on what the similarities can mean. I'm definitely open to the conversations and wouldn't mind making a video on it whether I feel like it or it is asked for. In this scenario, I'm just bringing it up as a possible discussion to hypothetically discuss a potential means for improving Eustass Kid's build. Just using it to push the discussion forward. Don't take it too serious. I don't even think they have any kind of familial relation, but that would be cool though. Now, if Kid had some kind of lineage like this could be something that could improve his scaling ability. His lineage could be anything that would be nice, similar to Blackbeard and Kuma's lineage. Now, if Kid and Shanks were cut from the same fucking cloth in this particular, it would probably be a buff to his hockey stats. But aside from his hockey stats, if Eustass Kid had some kind of relation to someone within the past and they had like a crazy like endurance feat or something like that, I could see that being able to buff Eustass Kid's potential, similar to Kuma and his Buccaneer abilities. Now, when it comes to hockey can honestly buff anyone's build in One Piece, primarily because hockey can be stacked on prior abilities. Even for people who are considered hockey mains, their hockey enhances already prior abilities. People like Shanks and Rogers uses hockey on their blades, Garp and Kobe uses hockey on their fist, Katakuri uses hockey with his Devil Fruit, and each one of these examples are not restricted to their respective fighting styles. Applying this to Kid could prove interesting. We've seen him use hockey on his arms in the anime, which we can discuss later, but I particularly want to imagine Kid with fleshed out hockey. With Rule 2 in this discussion in place, I'm not going to say that Eustass Kid would have hockey above people like Shanks or even Luffy. We could imagine Kid well versed in hockey like Luffy, but for the sake of the video, I'll discuss him with certain hockey specialties. I'll get observation hockey out the way, it's not going to be too crazy. Granted, Future Sight might have been fucking helpful when Red Hair blitzed his ass and caught him off guard, but I'm more interested in armament hockey and conquerors. Imagine any of the armament or conquerors coding on a Punk Gibson or the fist of Punk Rotten. Eustass Kid's means of damaging Kaido through his durability was like going to crush him and crush his organs. Giving the Kid the ability to do internal damage without being restricted to crushing or even crushing people with Ryuo fists, I feel like it could drastically improve his already impressive power. I'm not sure if Eustass Kid could coat the laser in damn Punk. That would be cool, I will say. But maybe coating the damn Punk cannon itself? Maybe increasing how much power could course through the metal. Finally, let's talk about Eustass Kid's Devil Fruit, the Jiki Jiki no Mi, also known as the Magnet Fruit. I will begin by mentioning that magnetism is one of my favorite abilities. I have my own interest in real life in fields like engineering. And while I'm not as well versed in the topic as I want to be, one interest from that is the electromagnetic spectrum. As an extra example, Magneto is one of my favorite characters from the X-Men. Now, personal interest aside, let's actually go into depth on what Eustass Kid could potentially do and what that could mean to the world, using one of the most iconic characters with magnetism as a frame of reference. To start off, let's talk about what Eustass Kid could reasonably do. I'm sure most of you are aware of this idea, but consider the magnetism of the islands. For context, each island has its own magnetic field. It is because of this that travelers on the sea use log posts to travel. In the New World, these magnetic fields are more unstable. So much so that the New World log post is recommended since it is possible that these needles will go out while you're traveling to the island, leaving 2 needles as backups. While an ability that would primarily be used for utility, the first ability that he could use is manipulating these said magnetic fields. In a drastic example, imagine Kid reaching the island of Laugh-Tale and completely altering the magnetic field for the island. It would make it difficult or even downright impossible to navigate to the island. He could realistically even affect the usage of the lost log post in direct ways. Imagine Eustass Kid as an emperor of the sea and using his ability to deter people from approaching his island. And who knows, maybe even lead unsuspecting pirates into trap islands, leading them to islands only to pillage everything they have by either force or absorbing them into his fleet. Not to mention, it was shown that Eustass Kid could pull in ships from afar, so by the time the travelers are in sight, they could begin getting pulled in by his magnetic force. Imagine Eustass Kid gaining the ability to fly as well, man. Dude pulls in your ship, floats above you, and repels it downward to sink it into the water. Of course, if that's his method, you know. While it is effective in some circumstances, he would generally have to be a straight dickhead to go the extra mile to do all that. Speaking of his ability to fly, imagine if his control over his fruit could expand to his ship, able to fly and bring his crew directly to Sky Islands. Or if he was that crazy, levitate ships into the air and toss them onto islands. That shit would be crazy. If the hypothetical control over magnetism used orbs as a medium as shown in the anime, maybe he could create orbs of various magnetisms. Sort of like Kid's Assign, but not restricted to having to be placed on a being. Rather just having an orb of magnetism that he can manipulate, manipulating the person or object inside as a byproduct. Now, I'm kind of more leaning to the idea of using orbs to manipulate magnetism because I know most people are going to jump straight to the idea of him manipulating the iron in people's blood. Now, even though I don't like the topic, for the sake of power scaling, I wouldn't mind Eustass Kid having this OP ability. I would love for him to have some kind of broken ability that most people could encounter. However, for the integrity of the story of One Piece and the sake of keeping this discussion interesting, I would not give Eustass Kid this ability. I think the idea of manipulating the iron in one's blood could make fights seem less interesting and lead to a bunch of cop-out scenarios. I think the orbs makes it more interesting as to manipulate people and objects, the prerequisite to actually land the attack would need to be met. From there, Kid can affect the polarity of everything inside the orb, maybe toggling multiple objects to act the same when it comes to attracting or repelling objects, or even creating two orbs of different magnetisms to shred the target. Moving on to from the orbs, going straight to the electricity generated by the devil fruit. I'll go ahead and admit, to my current knowledge, nothing comes to mind for real when I think of direct confirmations of Eustass Kid's ability to manipulate electricity for offensive purposes, unless you want to stretch to make it damn punk as that example. It has seemingly been used for the purpose of just demonstrating when the ability is in use. Though, I've seen the discussions and I've theorized myself, like with the community, that there have been signs of electromagnetisms as seen within the design of the devil fruit, as well as just the demonstration as well for it. So its connection to the electromagnetic spectrum is there, though whether it is or not, I would like to discuss it regardless. I did all that setup to introduce the idea that he could use it in certain ways, but I'm not going to go too deep into that. As much as I would like to, I don't want to, primarily because I'm not well versed in the electromagnetic spectrum discussion. I would have to do my research, but unfortunately I haven't. So I just wanted to leave that as an opportunity for maybe people who are well versed in that topic. Maybe you guys would know what he could do with said electricity. The last thing I do want to discuss is what Eustass Kid can actually do, and that is create mechanisms with his fruit. I'm sure you guys have seen he can make his arms like Punk Gibson and make big ass constructs like Cornadillo. The funny thing is, the Cornadillo was bigger than a Big Mom that had gotten amped in her size. So imagine just a mech bigger than Big Mom as like fucking Megazord, just Megazord Golem type shit to box people up. And then imagine all of his prior abilities stacked onto that. Like, even then, even imagine like if he had like some like puppet shit or something. I don't know what I would go for that. I genuinely wouldn't know, but sounds cool. You know, I think his mechanisms get pretty thrown to the side. I think a lot of people forget that he has made huge constructs, and the Cornadillo broke like Big Mom's arm. So they definitely wouldn't be like weak ass constructs. And then even with his magnetism, if like he like clashed with Big Mom and like tore the Golem's arm off, he could just rebuild it instantly. Like it wouldn't be much of a deal to like try to fuck him up. But I think I will wrap the video up with that. I know this video may seem unstructured and all over the place, but I mainly just wanted to spark some discussion within the comments. Feel free to leave comments about this topic, yeah? Could you see a world that Emperor or even Pirate King Eustass Kid in? What would that look like? Do you think I'm gassing up Eustass Kid? The answer is no, by the way. Yes, I am actually. I am. Also, I don't mind having topics in general. Video ideas, opinions on certain characters or whatnot. I do have videos laid out, but I am open-minded to new discussions. I am also very uncultured and behind on a lot of things that I want to read up, but I am making the effort to catch up. So if there's a series that I haven't discussed yet, which would literally be all of them except One Piece right now, then just know that I am seeing it and probably just need to catch up. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I appreciate it if you sat through it, or even if you just paid in mind for even like a couple minutes. I am here to I just wanted a place to talk about all the nerdy stuff that I'm into, such as One Piece, which is my favorite anime of all time right now. So let me know. Actually, I'll leave that as a question. That is the main question that I would like to hear. What is your favorite anime of all time? I would appreciate to read all of the opinions and things like that. So until next time, I wish you well. Goodbye.